When the great Lord of all nations, Cambaset, or Cambyses, as he's otherwise known, came to Egypt. At that time, the people of all lands were with him. He ruled this land as king in its whole extent. They settled in it, inasmuch as he was a great king of Egypt and the great Lord of all lands. He committed to me the office of president of the physicians, and kept me beside him as friend and temple master. His official name was assigned to him as King Mastura. I made known to him the greatness of the city of Sais as the city of Nit, the great mother who gave birth to the sun entity Ra. He was first born. No other being was yet born. Moreover, I informed him also of high consequence to the habitation of Nit, as is such as a heaven in all its quarters. Moreover, also of the high importance of the chambers of Nit, which are the abodes of Nit and of all the entities in them, as well as the high consequence of the temple Hakab. Remember, Nut or Neith, or some variations like that, is like the sky, what they consider to be the sky goddess, as well as the high consequence of the temple Hakab, in which the great king and lord of the heaven resides. Moreover, also of the high importance is the south chamber, of the north chamber, of the chamber of the morning sun, Ra, and of the chamber of the evening sun, Tamu. These are the mysterious abodes of all the entities. And I made my complaint to King Cambaset concerning all the foreigners who had taken up their quarters in the temple of Nit, that they might be driven out, so that the temple of Nit might be established in its full splendor, as was the case formerly. Then the king gave command to drive out all foreigners who had taken up their quarters in the temple of Nit, and to pull down all their huts and their chattels in this temple, and they themselves were forced to remove out of the precincts of the temple. The king gave command to purify this temple of Nit, and to restore to it all its inhabitants, and to acknowledge the people as servants of the temple. He gave command to replace the sacred property of Nit, the great mother, and of all the entities of Sais, as had been formerly. He gave command to reestablish the order of all the festivals and all the processions as they were formerly. All this did the king because I had made him acquainted with the high consequence of Sais, for it is the city of all the entities. May they remain on their thrones in her forever. When King Cambaset came to Sais, he entered the temple of Nit in person. He testified in every good way his reverence for the great exalted holy female entity Net, the great mother, and for this the great entities in Sais, as all the pious kings have done. He did this because I had made him acquainted with the high importance of the holy female entity, for she is the mother of the sun entity Ra himself. The king bestowed all that was good upon the temple of Nit. He caused the libations to be offered unto the everlasting one in the house of Nit, as all the kings of former times had done. He did this because I had informed him of all the good that should be done for this temple. I established the property of Nit, the great mother, as the king had ordered, for the duration of eternity. I caused the monuments of Nit, the lady of Sais, to be set up in every proper way, as an able servant of his master ought to do. I was a good man before his face. I protected the people under the very heavy misfortune which had befallen the whole land, such as the country had never experienced before. I was a shield to the weak against the powerful. I protected him who honored me and found it best for him. I did all good for them when the time had come to do it. I entrusted to them the prophetic offices. I gave them the best land, as the king had commanded, to endure forever. I made a proper burial to such as, without a coffin, I nourished all their children and built up again all their houses. I did for them all that is good, as a father does for his son. Then, when the calamity fell upon this nome, at the time when the grievous calamity befell the whole land, now King Pharaohs, and he lived forever, commanded me to go to Egypt while he was in the land of Elam, for he also was the great lord of all lands and a great king of Egypt, in order that I might reinstate the number of the sacred scribes of the temples, and might revive whatever had fallen into ruin. The foreigners escorted me from land to land, and brought me safe to Egypt, according to the command of the Lord of the land. I did according to what he commanded. I chose of the sons of the inhabitants from all their schools, to the great sorrow of those who were childless, and I placed them under expert masters, skillful in all kinds of learning, that they might perform all their works. And the king ordered that all favors should be shown them, Because of the pleasure with which they performed all their works, I supplied all those who distinguished themselves with whatever they needed for the scribe's profession, according to their progress. The king did all this because he knew such a work was the best means of awakening to new life all that was falling into ruin, in order to uphold the name of the entities, their temples, their revenues, and the ordinances of their feasts forever. I was honored by each of my masters so long as I sojourned on the earth. Therefore, they gave me decorations of gold and showed me all favor. O ye entities who are in Sais, remember all the good that has been done to the president of the physicians, Utahar Rasanet, and all that you are willing to requite him for his benefits. Establish for him a great name in this land forever. O Yasir, thou eternal one, the president of the physicians, Utahar Rasanet, throws his arms around thee to guard thy image. Do for him all good, according to what he has done, as the protector of thy shrine forever. No further comment on the foregoing text is necessary, for its historical value can hardly be overrated as giving an entirely new aspect of the character of Cambyses. Darius I took great delight also in rescuing the Egyptian temple learning, Darius is the Persian way of saying Darius, from its threatened extinction. He provided for the training of the youth in the priestly schools and built new sanctuaries. There is a temple in the great oasis at El Karga, which is still in a good state of preservation, and whose walls are covered with the name of Athariush, the Egyptian form of Darius. But the variation in the official coronation names leads to the inference that Darius II also took part in the building and decorating of this temple. It was dedicated to the Theban Yemen under the special surname of Us Qapash, the strong-armed. The record of the works executed by Darius II on the northern outer walls runs as follows. He did this in remembrance of his father, the great entity Yemen-Ra, the lord of Hebi, with a strong arm, and his associated entities, inasmuch as he built this new house of good white stone in the form of a mesquite. Its doors were formed of the Libyan acacia wood, which is called Pir Shanu, and covered with Asiatic bronze in well-wrought, lasting work. His monument was renewed according to its original plan. May the entities preserve him among living men from hundreds of thousands of 30 years Jubilee feast on the throne today and forever and eternally. The building and decoration of the temple was continued to the times of King Next Horeb, 378 to 360 BCE. No royal names of the subsequent date appear there. The buildings erected here and elsewhere by Darius were entrusted to an Egyptian architect whose pedigree up to his forefathers of the times of the Third Dynasty is given on page 434. Some inscriptions of the same Khnum Ibra, I think it's Yeb because the heart there, but inform us that he held his office during the years 27 to 30 of King Darius I. The inscription of the 30th year runs thus. On the 15th day of the month, Thramuthi, in the 30th year of the king of Upper and Lower Egypt, and the lord of the land, Nathariush, Darius, the first, the ever-living, the friend of all the entities. This was written by the master of works in the whole land, the architect of Upper and Lower Egypt, Khnum Ibra, son of the architect of Upper and Lower Egypt, Ahmas Sehnet. It is well known that Darius I conceived the bold plan of connecting the Red Sea with the Nile by a canal. The remains of a statue of the king, as well as several memorial stones, covered with cuneiform inscriptions and Egyptian hieroglyphs, which have been found near the line of the canal, north of Suez. Place the fact beyond all doubt. Below is a translation by Jules Opert of the best preserved of these inscriptions. A great entity is Aramazda, who created this heaven, who created this earth, who created man, who gave to man a will, who established Dareiavaush as king, who committed to King Dareiavaush so great, such an empire. I am Dareiavaush, king of kings, king of lands of many tongues, king of this great earth far near, the son of Hystaspes, the Achaemenid. Hystaspes, I don't remember how you say that name. I mean, I don't think that's a Greek variation. Says Dareiavaush the king, I am a Persian. With the valor of Persia, I conquered Egypt. Known as Mudraya by them. I ordered this canal to be dug from the river called Piraba, the Nile, which flows into Egypt to the sea, which comes out of Persia. Erythraean Sea. This canal was afterwards dug there, as I had commanded, and I said, go and destroy half of the canal, from Bera to the coast, for such was my will. According to Strabo's statement, Dareiavaush left off constructing the canal because some had assured him that Egypt lay below the level of the Red Sea, and so there was danger of the whole land being laid underwater. The city of Coptus, at the western terminus of the caravan route, which led through the desert valleys of Hammamat from the Red Sea to the Nile, was for years the residence of two eminent persons who were invested with the office of Erpa, governor, under the kings just named. They were two brothers named Ata Ehuhe and Eleerta, the sons of certain Arthemis, and his Persian wife, Kanzu. Both were designated as Saras, the eunuchs of Persia, posted at Coptus, in which city the entity of the mountaineers, Amsu, was held in the highest honor. The two brothers had frequent occasion to visit the valleys of Hammamat in order to have stones quarried for the materials of the royal buildings. Through their long residence in the country, they seem to have adopted Egyptian manners and customs, and they did not disdain to perpetuate their names on hieroglyphic memorial tablets in that valley. And the pedigree of the architects: Imhotep, architect of South and North Egypt, chief burgomaster, a high functionary of King Ta'athar, lived in the time of the Third Dynasty. Ra-Hotep, prophet of Yemen-Ra. Prophet's probably the wrong way to phrase it if they just moved their way up the ranks. I mean, certainly they would increase in some skills, but there's a difference between a spiritually gifted and someone who's just passed degrees. King of the entities, secret seer of Heliopolis, architect of Upper and Lower Egypt, chief burgomaster. Bekan Kansu, chief burgomaster. Uta'a Kansu, architect, chief burgomaster. Nefer Menu, architect, chief burgomaster. Me or Ae, architect, chief burgomaster. Su Waranen Heb, architect. Pepe, architect, chief burgomaster. Amen Harpa Mesha, second, third, and fourth prophet and high priest of Yemen, king of the entities, chief burgomaster. Hodium Saf, architect, chief burgomaster. Marmer, architect, commander. Horim-Saf, architect commander. Ta'aheb, architect commander. Nashunu, architect commander. Taheb, architect commander. Nashunu, architect commander. Taheb, architect commander. Nashunu, architect commander. Ta-Hepu, architect of Upper and Lower Egypt, chief burgomaster. Nashunu, architect. Uwah Abra Bran Uwer, architect. Ankh Samthek, architect of Upper and Lower Egypt. Ahmes Sanet, Setnefer Tamu, architect of Upper and Lower Egypt. Knum Ibra, chief minister of works for the whole country, architect of Upper and Lower Egypt in the 27th to 30th years of King Darius, about 490 BCE. So the chief architects, they last longer than the pharaohs, don't they? So that's what they're saying here. The representations of the entity Imsu of the Copts, or Amsu of the Copts, are accompanied by the hieroglyphs which of the names of the eunuchs of Persia preceding them, whenever they occur by chronological data, and stating these. However, they departed from the old Egyptian rule inasmuch as, instead of the current regnal year of the sovereigns in question, they chose to exhibit the full sum of the years of their reigns, as also the full sum of their own years of service under one or more kings, with the addition of Ar-en has made, i.e. lived during, many years, just as in the case of the name of Taharakba on the Apis Stela, as we've gone over before. Some examples of these inscriptions will illustrate this mode of dating. These last programs don't really have any hieroglyphs or something to go with it that I can suppose. So the first inscription, the sum of the 6 years of the lord of the land, Cambyses, the sum of the 36 years of the sovereign Darius I, and the sum of the 12 years of the sovereign Xerxes Xerxes I. That probably is closer to Xerxes. I don't remember how you say Xerxes when you're not trying to say Greek or Latin or something. Has the eunuch of Persia, Cyrus and Parsa, Ata Ehu, Ata Ehu, Ata Ehu lived, remaining the presence of the entity Amsu, the chief of the city. The second inscription, the sum of the 36 years of what they consider to be godlike benefactor and sovereign, the son of the sun, and wearer of the crown, Nethariush, Darius the first, may he live today and evermore. And the sum of the 13 years of his son, the sovereign, the son of the sun, and wearer of the crown, Xerxes the first, may he live today and evermore. Has lived the eunuch of Persia and governor of the city of Coptus, Ata-e-Uhe. Third inscription, the 5 years of the king of Upper and Lower Egypt, the sovereign Artaxerxes, and the 16 years of what they consider to be a godlike benefactor, Artaxerxes. Oh, we already said Artaxerxes, right? Has lived the eunuch of Persia, Adaerta, the son of Artemis, and the child of his wife, Kanzu, remaining before the face of Amsu of Ka, that entity. A comparison of all these rock inscriptions gives the following determination of the regnal years of the kings and their relation to the years of service of the two Persians. Ata-e-Uhe lived 6 full years under the reign of Cambyses, 36 under Nathariush, Dariush I, 2 under 6 under 10 and some under 12, 16 under the reign of Kshiarsh, Xerxes I. Ali-Erta lived 5 full years under the reign of Artaxerxes, or Artaxerxes, 16 years. That phrase he lived referred not to the whole lifetime of a person from his birth, but to his actual years of service spent in Egypt. It is proved by the dates given in the 2 inscriptions of Ali-Erta, who expressed the 5 years beside the 16 years in order to show his service under Artaxerxes. If Cambyses reigned 6 years as king of Egypt, the conquest of Egypt must be placed not in the year 525, but in 527, as before stated. Xerxes I, or as he's named in the Egyptian inscriptions, Kshiarsh, or Ksheresh, did not enjoy the best reputation among the Egyptians who had learned to esteem his predecessor, Dariush I, as a benignant and well-disposed leader, after Xerxes had by force of arms crushed the insurrection made by the Egyptians to throw off the Persian yoke. The foreign rule pressed more severely than ever on the land over which Achaemenes, the king's brother, was placed as satrap. The defeats which the Persians soon suffered from the Greeks roused anew the desire of the Egyptians for liberty, and an anti-king Kabash, with the coronation name of Smen Tanen Step and Ptah, boldly made head against the Persian sovereign. The memorial inscription of the satrap Ptolemy relates that the seaboard, which bears the name of Patanet in Greek, Pathanatus, had been assigned by the king Kabash to the entities of the city of Buto, when his majesty had gone to Buto to examine the seaboard which lies in their whole domain, with the purpose of penetrating into the interior of the marshland of Natho, to inspect that arm of the Nile which flows into the sea, in order that the Asiatic fleet might be kept at a distance from Egypt. This lake district called Patanat belonged to the entities of Buto from earlier times, but the hereditary foe, Xerxes, had alienated it. He kept none of it for the entities of the city of Buto. Thus, the hereditary foe, Xerxes, had shown an evil example against the city of Buto, but the great king, our lord, the entity Horus, the son of Asa, Isis, and the son of Yosir, Osiris, the prince of the princes, the king of the kings of Upper and Lower Egypt, the avenger of his father, the lord of Buto, the beginning of the entities, and he who came after whom none was king. He drove out the hereditary enemy, Xerxes, out of his palace together with his eldest son, and so he made himself famous in Sais, the city of the entity Net, on that day by the side of the mother of the entities, the last pharaohs. After the retreat of the Persians, a ray of hope for the freedom dawned upon the Egyptians. During a period of about 60 years, the 2 dynasties, the 29th and 30th, established themselves at Mendes and Sebennytus to venture on the last effort to reconquer their lost independence. The monuments which the names of the kings in those dynasties can only be deciphered with difficulty are silent as their deeds. As the most remarkable monument of their times, we may point to the sarcophagus of King Nectanebo I, now in the British Museum, as also to that of a descendant of the last kings of the 30th dynasty, now in Berlin. The inscriptions have accurately preserved the pedigree of the latter. King Naklet Horeb, then Techer or Taktas, and from that is Nes Benadede, or with his wife Mertuhap, Mertuhap was the descendant. So Nes bin Dede. And on the other side, King Neb-Eth, so the last pharaoh. But that first couple here, we have Thechabes, who was the daughter who married Pet Imen, the hereditary prince and military commander, and their child was Neb-Eth, the monarch of the district of Buto, Siboneytes, and Tennis, the commander-in-chief of the king. And Nes bin Dede was the military commander, nomarch of the Siboneytes. And I would have to cut this short and finish Dynasty 16 in the next program. Sharma, peace be upon you.